Howdy, everyone. Welcome back to Narrative Dissonance here on Unsafe Space. Today is, I don't know, hold on. I think it's the 11th. Today's Monday, July 11th. I'm Carter. Narrative Dissonance is a show in which we talk about the mainstream media and maybe not mainstream media stories, basically how we're being lied to, talk about the news, that kind of stuff. Think it's been a couple weeks since we've done the show. I was on vacation and I don't feel guilty about it at all. And frankly, from what I can tell, there wasn't really a lot of news that you needed to hear about. So if you missed me, so what? Hope you had a good 4th of July. Hope you had a good Independence Day and did that. You can always watch this show and all of our other shows at unsafespace.com, where we live stream. We also stream on Utreon, Odyssey, Rumble. Follow us on Twitter at _unsafe space. And don't forget to share. You can support us financially at unsafespace.com if you want. Also, we have a bunch of other shows. I don't even remember what the shows that are coming out this week. So I'm going to bring on the two panelists first because they happen to be the show hosts for some of the other shows here on Unsafe Space. They're going to get me up to speed on the week's news. We're going to, I guess the last 2 weeks' news. We're going to maybe bitch about it together. But they can tell me what's going on agenda-wise. So first, welcome Beverly Clark, our esteemed producer and all-around token minority, and Alex Maselli, who is the smart one.
That's true.
Like of the three of us, or
out of everyone ever.
The smart one. That's just your title.
Okay.
He's just doing what I do on TMR when I just give you a whole bunch of different titles.
I'm just in a mood because I realized for 2 weeks that I wasn't paying attention to the news. I intentionally didn't care about the news, and it turns out I'm fine.
This is what I've been doing for months. So
didn't matter. Nothing like really happened. There's still, I put on CNN this morning and MSNBC because I was like, all right, let's see what the swamp rats are up to. They're still talking about January 6th. It was all they spoke about all morning on the news. It was like, all right, well.
But we need to say that this does matter because that's what the show is. And so you need to watch this show.
I think it matters to know what you're being lied about and all that, or lied to about. But man, the mainstream media, they're still on their little thing. They're still on their, Trump.
Because they don't want to talk about the fact that like Hunter Biden's iCloud has been leaked. That Sri Lanka's
are there more dick pics from Hunter Biden? Is that what happened?
Yeah,
while I was gone?
The fact that Sri Lanka had kind of an uprising. They literally stormed the president's house because they ran out of fuel and food. They really ran out of food because they went pure organic farming. And then the former prime minister of Japan was assassinated with a zip gun. Yeah. And then the Elon Musk deal falling through. It's like they don't want to talk about those things. God forbid they talk about those things.
Yeah, we can talk about those, but they definitely don't want to. Although those Sri Lankans, they know how to do an insurrection because it was like a pool party. They didn't like carry podiums around. There's pictures of them just hanging out in his pool partying. So
Boris Johnson stepped down too, right? I think I read.
Yeah, Boris Johnson stepped down.
I made fun of him because the way he said that them's the breaks, and it was like, are you like a 30s Chicago like mobster? What kind of phrasing is that? Like, why would you say that in your like I'm resigning speech?
I mean, I would say that, but
oh yeah, the Dutch farmers too. Yeah.
Wait, before we get too far into this.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, is there a 451 episode?
No, there is not. No. There was a short live stream last week.
Okay.
And so nothing tomorrow.
And is there a Rebel Civics with Keith on Wednesday?
I'm going to attempt to. I still need to edit it. We recorded something, but hopefully I can get it done in time. So maybe.
Okay. And there is a Dangerous Thoughts with Stephen Hicks this week on Wednesday evening.
That's live with him? Okay.
Yeah. I haven't confirmed. I mean, I confirmed with him a while ago. I need to send him an email today, but pretty sure that's happening. So He's awesome. That'll be good. And then TMR Token Minority Report is on Thursday with you two.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
without me,
on
you
vacation.
can talk about fun stuff.
Yeah.
True. And we talk about and we make fun of you mostly.
Oh, that's fine. That's easy though. You guys should
It
do
is.
something more difficult.
Yeah, so I think that's everything. And then book club is still Fossil Future, yet we have not decided on a date. And this is the first time that we're talking to Carter right now. So if you want to decide on a date.
Oh, I
we can-
forgot.
or
I
we can
actually
wait.
forgot again what book it was.
I know, I figured.
I already finished it. I finished it last
Oh,
week
all
when
right.
you were on
Yeah,
You
back
should
vacation.
do it soon. I'm just horrible, guys. I'm sorry.
You were on vacation. It's okay.
Yeah. So actually, what we did is we kind of got in this mode where we were like, we're vacationing to America. So we left California, and it was fun to watch the gas prices fall as we left California. And then we had like a moment of silence for when we were coming back. It was like, welcome to the state of California. And we're like, oh, we're leaving America. We'll miss it, and we'll come back later. But I was telling you guys before the show, in the Bay Area, I mean, there are some fireworks and stuff. Like there's fireworks that happen, but they happen all the time, not just on. Actually, sometimes they might be gunshots. I can't tell, but whatever. They happen all the time, and not just on 4th of July, not just on Independence Day, but all of the people right around Independence Day. If you ever, that app Neighbor. Wait, is it Nextdoor?
Next door.
Yeah.
It's full of people complaining that like, you should pay for my dog's therapy, you people who are lighting off fireworks and blah, blah, blah. And how it's all complaints. No one has like pro-America 4th of July parties. Like you never get invited to an Independence Day party where people are wearing the American flag shirts or anything like that. Just doesn't happen. But it turns out in America, lots of people have flags and red, white, and blue things, and everyone's painting everything red, white, and blue, and everyone stops at the fireworks store, and everyone has dogs, and some of the dogs are upset about the fireworks, but no one like Karens each other about like, you should pay for my dog's therapy because of your fireworks. They're lighting the fireworks themselves. It's a pretty cool country. So shout out to those of you who live in America.
Yeah, that's what I was saying too, that most people around here are fine, but we just had the one old cranky neighbor who is a Trump supporter, but he just had sensitive dogs who got upset with the shooting. So
My next door is
Yeah.
almost all complaints about physical assaults and thefts and prostitutes. Lots of prostitutes. But like no one.
Wait, there's lots of prostitutes? What'd you say?
Yeah, in my
prostitutes.
area, there's like a high number of
people who
prostitutes.
sell for money.
Really?
Yeah. You when I walked.
I don't want to dox you, but I would
No.
not have guessed that based on like.
Well, I'm
where
in
I
Phoenix.
generally
I'm
live.
not in like a suburb. Like this is
Oh.
one of the most dangerous parts of the entire city. But,
Okay.
I mean, there's more dangerous parts than this, but yeah, it's pretty dangerous. Like I used to walk to work in early morning before the sun rose, and I would see prostitutes and nuns. That's who I saw, which was kind of a weird contrast. But yeah,
Yeah.
lots
Did
of
they ever
prostitutes around here.
prostitutes wear nun costumes too?
So-
no.
Okay, this is a story that's way too gross. So if you have kids, remove them for the next 60 seconds.
Okay.
When I moved to San Francisco, I used to work pretty late, and my buddy and I, we both worked late, and we would go back to my house at like 2 a.m. sometimes and like have a beer or whatever and hang out. And we would watch, and by the way, this is like in 2000 before it was cool. We would watch the transvestite hookers get like picked up by a car outside, you like look out the window, and then 15 minutes later get dropped off again at the corner. It was that was my introduction to San Francisco. When it was my very first apartment. I had just moved from the East Coast, and I was like, what's this city about? And I remember like sitting on the balcony, the fire escape, watching this happen and realizing what it was like to live in San Francisco. It's only gotten worse.
Are we still allowed to say transvestite? It seems like a word that isn't used anymore. No one uses that.
Well, it was used at the
transsexual.
time, so I'm not going to apologize for it. And even if
Yeah,
it's not used
really.
anymore, I'm still not going to apologize for
Never
it. So
apologize.
they were
I'm just
transvestite
curious.
hookers. That's what they were.
What's What's the okay thing to say now?
Who cares?
Now they're just stunning and brave women.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
With a penis.
/ swim champions. Whatever. I don't know. Okay, so wait. So let's go through some news. Abe was assassinated. Did you see the gun?
Yeah, I did.
It's pretty cool. and he built a bunch of different little guns. He built like the one that he used was like a double barrel shotgun with 2 different electronic triggers that was like bound together with tape. He literally like built a homemade gun.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. I mean, Japan has some pretty strict gun control laws.
But do they have laws to control tape and planks of wood and metal pipes? Probably not.
Well, they will soon. I think duct tape is going to be on the banned list.
Or you have to get a special license to have duct tape.
Yeah, I see you're ordering some pipes and some duct tape. And it wasn't like a political assassination. It was some weird religious thing, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like
so that happened
when you're an ex-prime minister.
It was hilarious to see people who don't know anything about zip guns or anything like trying to report on it and going, wow, that gun does not look normal. And you're like, yeah, it's not manufactured. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, just wait till 3D printers become more common.
Mm-hmm. Can we show this gun? Am I allowed to?
Yeah, do you have it?
Okay, I think so. Let me see.
Yeah, show it. If you've got it, show it.
If you got it.
I just like improvised weapons. I always think it's clever and cool. I'm not condoning the assassination, even though Abenomics did destroy Japan completely. But I just think it's cool when people invent little improvised devices.
Alex is going to make fun of me because
you're
again,
Can you not share it? Are you?
I tried to put Brave Search as the regular what is it? The one that it starts on, but it wouldn't let me, so I'm stuck on Bing.
There it is.
Yep.
There it is. Right? It's like massively homemade.
Yeah.
It's not like he had some other firearms and put them together in some way or modified them. Like he went to the Japanese equivalent of Home Depot.
I'm just now noticing the people in the background, like the guy on the bike.
Yeah.
And what? I'm like, it's humorous to me because they're just standing there.
Yeah. It's pretty weird. It's pretty weird. I don't know what the guy was thinking.
Right. Yeah.
He just stood there afterwards as well. So
yeah. Well, did he want to be caught? He didn't care.
Maybe.
Know.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure the problem here is white supremacy. But I'll figure out how to connect that to what happened. In just a moment.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to point something out about Japan because people use Japan and other countries as an example of, they have strict gun laws and they don't have a lot of gun violence. Japan is like massively homogenous, like massively ethnically homogenous. In fact, they're also horribly racist. Like in general, as a society, it's a racist society. Like where a lot of Americans would not be able to maybe even tell the difference between like a Korean and a Japanese. Japanese call the Korean dogs. They hate them. Like they are massively racist. So you can have one of the things that causes strife, or one thing that can be exploited to cause unrest in a society, is ethnic differences. And our ethnic differences have been exploited. In fact, I believe the Soviet Union explicitly said that was part of their plan to undermine us ideologically, was to try and exploit ethnic differences because the class difference exploitation wasn't working. But you can't do that in a country like Japan. You can't exploit ethnic differences if everyone is Japanese. So it's disingenuous and dishonest to compare countries that have homogeneity with the U.S., which is, one of the most diverse, if not the diverse, major country in the world.
Well, and then also, I don't think it's really good to compare them specifically because they've had a problem with sexual assault being pretty rampant. And they don't, and it's like, well, that wouldn't be quite as much of a problem if any woman could be strapped. Like,
right. If she could shoot the guy. Yeah. They also, they do shuffle. They sweep a lot of things under the rug in Japan. Right. So yeah, that's a good point. There's a seedy undertone that just gets ignored.
Yeah.
And that's just part of the culture. So,
you've talked about some stories when you lived in Japan too, about as a white guy. And
I never lived there. I was there
for work.
I looked at my passport once, and I went to Japan 36 times in 3 years. So I was there a lot, but I never actually lived there.
Okay.
It seems so much time on planes to me.
I know it was a lot of time on planes, but I will say this. I mean, I had friends and colleagues who did live there. They treat you very well when you're visiting, but once you decide to live there, that's when they're like, "Oh, now we hate you. You're not supposed to live here. You're allowed to visit, but you can't." You can't. Yeah. Someone Zato in chat says people follow rules in Japan too. Yeah, they're very compliant. They tend to be very compliant and very strictly enforce social norms.
Well, he's kind of bringing up the fact, because he said it earlier in chat, that at least he's wearing a mask. That was the thing. He's wearing one of them.
Poorly.
Wait, was the assailant wearing a mask?
Yeah, he was wearing a...
Yeah, but under his nose, though.
Yeah.
Oh, so maybe he was like, I'm going to try and kill him with the coof, and if that doesn't work, I'll have to make it.
It's taking a lot longer than I initially planned, so going on to plan B.
Yeah, what the heck? Yeah, you're right. I just noticed that. He's wearing a mask. And so is the cop that's coming after him.
Yeah.
And like the cop comes after him in like a weirdly polite slow motion way. If you see the pictures, it's like I feel like in the US they would have guns drawn and they pounce on the guy.
Yeah.
Some service agent would be like horizontally flying through the air.
Right, yeah. Exactly.
Multiple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so even their arrests are polite.
Yeah.
They're so formal.
All right. Have we been racist about Japanese enough? Should we move on and be horrible about something else?
I think you can always be more racist to Japanese.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no. I mean, that's okay. I'm just saying.
They're short. You can throw that out there on average.
Mm-hmm.
What was the joke from that South Park episode where the Japanese are like taking over their kids, and they're like, every time the parents address them, they go, "Your penis is so large." Oh, we have small penis. It's a very old joke at this point. But
how can you tell? Because isn't it all pixelated?
Yeah.
All right.
Now.
Probably the kids should have stayed out of the room right up until now. Now, though, we're going to be family friendly, right?
Sure.
No. All right. So that's one story that happened. A former prime minister in a country that no one here really cares about was assassinated by a zip gun dude. Okay.
Yes.
But they were trying to use it as an example of why they were like gun violence, and they're like, we need more strict gun laws here in the US because this happened in Japan. And it was like,
yeah,
what?
You know what? I spent all weekend around a large number. I'm not going to go into, but I spent all weekend around guns and people with guns. And we'll just say guns that most people would not know are normal. And no one shot each other. It was amazing. There was no...
You avoided shooting anyone else?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, my aim's bad. So.
Oh. Yeah, I'm still not good with handguns. I like rifles more.
I have a problem with handguns because, and I was talking to my buddy about this, I learned the old Weaver stance thing, and like I'm really trying to break myself of that habit, but it's like it's really difficult. I'm doing and I'm actually pretty good if I do that. But if I try and do the new thing, I'm horrible. I'm worse than if I had just started from scratch doing the new
Right.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Trying to
that's the way it
unlearn
is with muscle
your
memory and
memory.
stuff. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. The only thing I've ever actually fired is a handgun myself.
What kind?
A high point. It was not very good, honestly. I was there for a concealed carry like licensing class that you can take to get your license here in Arizona, but you don't actually need your license here in Arizona. It's just for like if you wanted to go to a state that recognizes concealed carry licenses.
Wait a minute. I had an Arizona CCW. You need it for concealed. You can carry open, but you need it for concealed in Arizona.
No, you don't need it.
Oh,
for
did they
concealed
change
here.
that?
They did a while ago. You don't.
It was like
need
20
for
years ago that I had it.
Yeah, you don't need it
Okay.
here for concealed, but you can get one here so that if you go to another state that has a concealed carry permit, that it will be recognized there.
Yeah.
That's why
Okay.
most people get it now.
Okay.
But it was like my friend was firing a bodyguard, and that one's like really small, like for the caliber that it is. So it was like loud and puffed out so much smoke. And at one point, one of the shells like flew back and hit somebody, and it was like, okay. But once someone there was firing a shotgun, and that was loud because this was an indoor range, so all that sound just bounced back at us.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shells do
Yeah.
fly out too. We were shooting, had the AR handgun and then AR rifle, and then had a
I was
handgun.
gonna say, you
someone
have
else-
an AR pistol? Cool.
I don't, but someone else does. But so we're shooting side by side, but the shells just kept like flying into him.
Yeah. That's what you got to tell when you take people to the range for the first time. Usually, well, I used to do that. You like tell them to like wear a shirt with a tight high collar.
So it doesn't fall in there.
Especially women, because like you'll get hot brass ejected and then they'll like fall down their shirt and they'll do a little dance, sometimes with the gun in their hand, which is generally not safe. So
yeah.
And I always, no matter how much I push it against my shoulder or wherever, like it doesn't hurt, but then I bruise so easily. So then there's always just like a little bit of bruising.
Yeah. You can build up a callus. You just have to do it a lot. I don't have a callus.
And I
did.
don't shoot enough. So
yeah. Oh, someone says it's the other way around. In Arizona, you cannot open carry without a concealed carry license. Look, I'm just saying 20 years ago in Arizona, when I was there, you could open carry. I open carried into the grocery stores. I open carried everywhere. I wasn't even a resident. It wasn't a problem. But I did have to get a CCW to carry concealed in Arizona.
Yeah.
Now, that was a long time ago. So
it is for Pennsylvania. You can open carry without anything. I need to get my concealed carry still.
Yeah.
Again.
Speaking, I'm just going to throw this out there for people who are interested. If you live in a state that or a county where your sheriff is like a May issue sheriff, now might be a good time to apply for your permit to carry, because governments haven't scrambled, like authoritarian leftist governments haven't scrambled to try and implement new laws to get around the Supreme Court ruling. So they're kind of stuck in this, like, well, we can't do May issue. It's kind of like I don't know if it's full shall issue, but it's like they can't require a reason, right? So it's a good time to go give it a shot if you want to do that.
Speaking of that, isn't New York trying to get this thing? It's something like 3 years of social media content for you to get your permit, which I think is insane. First of all, it's not everyone has social media, and secondly, that's a chilling effect on what people put on social media, which is bullshit.
I hadn't heard that. That is chilling, right? And in fact, it reminds me of like all right. I got to explain why it reminds me of the January 6th thing, but it does. Today on CNN, they were all talking about this tweet that I guess Trump tweeted, because what they're trying to do, I guess they've uncovered like some people did have some plans to try some stuff, or I don't know, who knows. And they're trying to link it to Trump. And the key piece of evidence that they're excited about with respect to this is that he apparently tweeted something to the effect of, "It's going to be wild on the 6th. Like, come to Washington, it's going to be wild, right? And that is the right, exactly. That is the, hey, if you read into this in exactly the way we want, it's an incitement, and this is right. That's what they're trying to do. But the reason it's reminding me of the New York thing that you're talking about is when they want, they can take your words however they want to, right? So if you're like, it's going to be wild, then you are meaning like it's going to be a great party and blah, blah, blah. But something happens, they're going to take that to mean like, oh, you meant that you wanted, like, it's going to be wild is code for insurrection.
Well, and then they'll roll that back for people they like. I'm sorry, but so many senators and House representatives said very insightful things on the news, on Twitter, and it's
what's the low IQ one? Maxine Waters.
Yes.
Man, she said a lot of stuff.
Yeah, she did.
She's not the only low IQ one. I don't mean to diss all the other dumb ones. I just mean she's particularly low IQ.
Yeah, just like, don't let up. And, take to the streets, like the shit they say. Like, come on. Like, and that is, like, even then, I wouldn't be saying you're inciting violence. But, like, it's one step closer to it than anything Trump said or wrote, honestly.
Yeah, I wouldn't, as dumb as she is and the stuff that she said, I would not try and have her arrested. I wouldn't accuse her of trying to incite violence, even though she probably was trying to incite violence. I just don't think, I don't think it's wise to be accusing people of that for that kind of language. But yeah, with Trump, anything he says, they'll just construe it to be. I just find it fascinating that I felt like it had gone on forever when I left, and I come back 2 weeks later and they're literally talking about it's the exact same CNN like content that was around 2 weeks ago. They're like sitting around getting experts to pontificate about how Trump is connected and how they're going to get him, and like the January 6th insurrection and blah, 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 blah. I don't think it's just that they don't want to talk about other stuff. I think this is when you have really, really bad ideas, you get really good at propaganda, and like they are just hammering this shit home, right? It's like you remember the old television ads from the 80s at late night, like, and if you act now, we'll throw in a Ginsu Popio Slice-O-Matic, blah, blah, blah. Like, blah, blah, blah. It's like this constant, like, in your face, 1-800, whatever it was, right? They would like, it was like over salesy, constantly just a barrage of promotional gobbledygook to try and like really penetrate your brain. That's what they're doing with the news. That's what they're doing with this January 6th thing. It's just they really, really, really want people to believe that there was an insurrection and that Trump supported the insurrection and caused the insurrection, so that he can't run again, which I don't think he should or would, but whatever, maybe he will. And B, they want to be able to vilify all of the people on that side of the aisle. Anyone that they can associate with Trump then gets painted with this insurrectionist brush if they can pull that off. So, I don't think it's just about avoiding other news. I think it's also about their agenda. They really need you to believe this, and you're not. And the fact that it's going on for this long means they know people aren't buying it. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we saw when we were traveling was like, we saw people with like Trump 2024 shirts, and like this is like America, a large part of middle America still loves the guy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we still have a lot around here. There's one house that just has a lot of F Joe Biden signs and pro-Trump, like a lot. It's all over the front yard, and
yeah. There's a lot of that kind of stuff. Let's go, Brandon stuff. When we drove east, which I don't think is revealing any too much because we live on
California.
the West Coast. We drove east, and as soon as we got to Reno, we stopped for lunch, and the table behind us, these people are like way beyond what I would consider like normal conversation, but they were all QAnon people, like having this like serious QAnon discussion. And it was like, this is what the rest of the world is like. It's crazy. It's crazy that, again, I think that is a little bit crazy, but the point is the divergent opinions are out there, and there's a large percentage of the population that's not on board with this crap, this radical leftist crap.
Well, and speaking of the idea that they just keep saying the same things over and over again because they're lying. Noam Chomsky recently said that about like Russia and the Ukraine. He said that of course it was provoked because they keep saying over and over and over again that it wasn't provoked. And then he goes on about how much censorship is going on in the US right now. And he said, never in my life have I seen as much censorship as I am seeing now in the US.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I know. And so many people that like for the most part, like have had great conversations with, were like, what a cretin. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, and they're like, oh, it's because he's pro-Russia. And I was like, he has a point. Okay, you cannot say the same thing over and over and over again without undercutting your point, because you sound like you're lying. And then you can't censor other people, you know, who might give you like other information without it's like making the veracity of your point questionable. And
right.
And I say that, and people go, "Oh, it's just because you support Russia, essentially." And I'm like, Jesus, I never once mentioned what is going on in Russia. Like, what is Putin's motivations? I don't give a shit. It's so funny to me, the idea that like, oh, if you question anything about that, that's pro-Putinism. And I'm like, I don't care what Putin says or does. What I care about is the fact that the US won't let us even see anything that isn't approved by them. And I'm like, that's the problem. Like, whether or not I agree with what anything Putin does, Putin is not. Yeah, I know. Putin, I don't know. No. Like, is not the point of the conversation. But a lot of people are just like want an easy, non-nuanced kind of conversation where they go, Russia equals bad. You know?
Yeah. They can't put in.
I don't like Chomsky. I don't like Chomsky's politics. I'll say that.
I don't either.
But he does make good points sometimes, and sometimes because he's not he is a free thinker. He thinks he has his own opinions. He's not just towing the line of anyone. So sometimes he'll say things that are like, "Oh, I'm really glad that we heard that. I'm really glad you said that," because he's right. He's 100% right about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've also like often like found him kind of disagreeable on some of his topics, and even some of his theory to me is just dumb, but like, and he's like one of the dumbest smart people ever, and sometimes he makes really amazing points though.
Yeah. Wait, let's do a couple super chats. We're gonna forget.
Yeah. I have it saved here. We have one from Judge Lot.
Oh, it's so
yeah, that was it.
I know. I clicked twice.
Would you want to do an episode on the possibility of international food production suppression by the elite and the possible causes? 1, Russia-Ukraine war. 2, U.S. sanctions against Russia. 3, Western climate change policy. Thanks.
Should it be international or just intentional? Is that a typo or is
it says intentional? No, I think he means intentional food production suppression.
You said international the first time. That's why I was.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's an interesting one, right? It's a theory that you probably, it's the kind of thing where we could never really prove that that's what was going on. Like that you couldn't prove that it was intentional. It'd be very difficult to prove that it was intentional. But they do have a larger climate agenda, which is to get us off of get us into bugs and off of meat and into lab grown stuff. And I don't know that the food that Ukraine grows doesn't help that. Like, it actually helps being vegetarian. Like, it's grains and stuff that we eat, right? So I don't think that necessarily helps. Why would they want food production suppression? Other than like, hey, let's kill off some people. I don't know. I tend to believe that these are bad people, but that their plans, that there aren't a lot of hidden agendas and like conspiratorial smoking room kind of things. Like, I think most of what they do to coordinate is done out in the open. like at the WEF. Like, you just have to read what they talk about at Davos. Like, you just have to watch the videos. That's the level of coordination, and then they follow up with some meetings, probably behind closed doors, about how to get some stuff done. I don't think they could pull off something like, let's destroy food production. I think they're incompetent fundamentally. So I don't know that they could pull that off. But
I think they can hurt it, though. I mean, ESG is one of the reasons why Sri Lanka went organic for their food production, because fossil fuels and fertilizer and pesticide control, and it severely hurt food production in Sri Lanka. The same is true with the Dutch farmers. They're basically telling them, for the same reason, climate control, that they need to stop farming. And and that's the thing. I think they expect there to be no reaction, or that the reaction will be just small. But it's like in Sri Lanka and the Dutch farmers, it's not small. Like, this is not a small reaction. I would not call this a small reaction to telling people essentially that they can't have food. Like, I don't know. I think they're being their rose-colored glasses on their on the things they want anyway, that they're expecting people to roll over too quickly and too easily.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this is true for a lot of progressive positions. They are performatively empathetic, but once you peel that away, they actually are heartless. I mean, I would say the same thing for a lot of the climate change stuff. I mean, cheap energy is the reason that we have higher standards of living, and we can live longer, and we can refrigerate medicines, and we can refrigerate food, and we can, like, cheap energy allows us to have complex hospitals and industry and all this other, like, our standard of living and our success in the West is largely tied to the fact that we are able to produce cheap energy. And to deny developing nations that and say, well, we're saving you from, we don't want you to we don't want you to contribute to climate change. We're saving you from making these bad decisions. You're going to have to, use these way less efficient but environmentalist approved methods. You're just killing people. You're just killing people. That's what you're doing, right? It's like, you can't, it's going to be harder for you to refrigerate food and medicine and have industry and all this stuff. And I think ultimately that's, I think it's a form of serfdom. I think it's very similar. It's like urban plantations. We've made Africa a plantation of the West in many ways. Like, we're going to subsidize your food, but we're not going to, we're not going to let you have, like, we're not going to teach you the freedom as the solution to this. We're going to throw a bunch of policies your way that are progressive, and we're going to throw a bunch of money at your way to basically destroy your agriculture industry. So if your farmers are growing something, we're going to flood the market with the stuff that we're sending, so they can't make a living. I mean, it keeps them in perpetual servitude or in a perpetual lower position, and I think it's abominable.
Well, and the fact that they dress it up, because so many people did not, like, every time I tell people, like, donating clothes to Africa destroys the textile industries in Africa, creating more poverty. And they were like, holy crap, I didn't know that. And I'm like, and by the way, they're not getting the clothes for free. Most of them, they're still paying for those clothes. Right. And the companies who bring them over are making a lot of money, by the way. So it's like, you should not be, just because it makes you feel good in the moment, to throw your clothes in this pile, going to Africa or any kind of place like that. Like, maybe it's going to South America. Like, don't do it. You'd be better off bringing that to your local homeless shelter.
Right.
Yeah.
Do not destroy an industry in another nation to make yourself feel better and to throw away your trash at the same time. Come on.
Right. But it's this, I think a lot of the problem with, I won't just say leftism, but a lot of mainstream political thought is they can't go beyond the immediate in terms of causes or results. So it's like if you go to a restaurant and the waiter brings your food and you're like, oh, waiters are responsible for food production. It's like, no, you moron. That's just the touch point you saw. There's a whole bunch of stuff behind this. Like, but that's the mentality often, right? Instead of, hey, what is it that makes this an economy successful, and how do you help people be self-sufficient, and what's different about the US? Like, that would involve, hey, let's go talk to them about individualism and capitalism, and like, let's educate them in that way rather than dropping a bunch of corn on them and some used Nike shirts.
People really have that mentality for waiters too, though. Because they go to the service industry when they're like, "Oh, my food's not here yet," and they blame the server. Though I'm like, well, the server is not the one making it. They're also waiting too.
Well, I call that mentality out of sight, out of mind, and I've seen a lot of people pass off things that way. Like, for example, people were talking about wanting electric vehicles completely in their area, and it was somewhere in California. And like the thing was, though, is that like most of the like production, the electricity that was going to go into the batteries was going to come from like natural gas and oil, and like, and they were like, oh well, at least the emissions are not in my area. And I was like, you are so selfish. Like, my God. And also, it's less of the energy transfer there. You're losing more, to get it to your car than you would be if you just had a gas vehicle. And a lot of people hate to hear that. They're like, no, it can't possibly be that. And it's like, I'm sorry, but it's true.
Yeah. Well, look, a lot of electric cars should just be called coal cars, depending on where you live. Like, that's
right.
You're burning fossil fuels somewhere else. I mean, there is an argument to be made for, like, if you're in LA and there's a smog problem, it's like, okay, well, let's produce the smog somewhere else. Like, okay, that's fine, but be aware of what you're doing. You're not producing the smog. You're just producing it somewhere else. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can get into electric vehicles in particular, but like the amount of heavy metals involved in electric vehicle battery production, the battery lives are relatively short. The process for refining those heavy metals is extremely toxic, and it also makes us more reliant on other countries, particularly China, right? Because we don't do. I don't think we do. Do we do? I don't know that we do any refining of some of those heavy metals in the U.S. at all. We maybe have like one or two plants that are. I'm not sure we do any. Like, we just don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And the EPA certainly wouldn't let you.
Right.
So
because it's toxic. And that's more than out of sight, out of mind. I say we do that with trade for like cheap products. We like outsource our human labor violations so that, we can have our cheap shit. And it's like, I'm so sick of this attitude where it's like, at least follow the through line of how you're spending your money before you call yourself a good person.
They only go halfway. They just go part way, and then they're like, I did it.
They
well, if you're slave labor, if you're buying a product made with slave labor, just be sure the company has a Black Lives Matter banner at the top of their webpage, and that will make it all okay. Or if it's the month of June, they should
Pride month. Yeah.
Yeah. The rainbow.
Just make sure they hate Trump.
Yes.
All right, let's do the other. Let's do the other super chat from Judge
Lot. Thank you, Judge.
On Twitter or on McIntyre, showed the corporate press using all the euphemisms for a mid-20th century Central European political party to describe Shinzo Abe. Apparently, he was far right. Wait, what?
Eye rolly face.
Yeah.
Huh. Well. There
far
you go.
right, as you know, is just he's not progressive enough for us. That's all that is.
Yeah.
Judson says we do 0.00 mining for rare earth minerals in the U.S. That's what I thought, and actually not just mining but processing. I think we do zero processing as well, like none of the refinement, because it involves a lot of nasty chemicals and that kind of stuff. We just don't do that. But we have iPhones, so
I don't.
Doing our part. Okay. Your Android uses the same stuff.
It does.
Don't
It's
put
probably
don't put words
made
in my mouth.
in the same region in China too, actually.
Yeah. They're all buying chips from Taiwan, which is, all right. Okay, what other news? Elon's backing out of Twitter. What do you guys think?
Is it official? Because I've been unclear on whether or not
He
like
said
like
he
he's
was
doing it as
backing out.
like
Twitter said they were going to sue him in Delaware Chancery Court.
I didn't know if it was like a a power move of something, or if if this is a for sure thing.
He's backing out.
It was kind of funny. Like, I told a friend that he was doing it, and he was watching a video of the quartering talking about him maybe gonna do it, and that was from like an hour ago, and then like. And I said, no, I think this is like even more. He's doing it now. It's not a rumor anymore. And then almost immediately, there's another video by the quartering going, yeah, he's actually doing it. It's like, I literally just uploaded that video. And but yeah, it was more confirmed him pulling out of the deal. And the question I have is like, someone's told me that like the stockholders are suing him, not the board. Or that the board is suing him to make it look like they want the best deal for the stockholders. I'm not sure what's going on there.
I don't know. I wasn't even aware that anyone was actually being sued, or that it was just. I thought it was just being mentioned that it was going to happen.
Yeah, that's kind of more what I heard too, actually. But I don't know who may be bringing lawyers into it. Like, I don't know.
What was his reason?
Well, I mean, I imagine it would be the board, because the board would justify whatever they're doing. They would say, well, we're acting on behalf of the shareholders. Right. And they're probably just going to get, doesn't he have like $1 billion, like non-refundable thing that he owes? Like if he backs out, doesn't he owe a payment of $1 billion?
That I don't know about.
I think he does. So I think they're going to just want to make sure they get that. And who knows, maybe they'll try and get more. I don't know. It's disappointing because there was a moment when I was like, okay, well, maybe Twitter will be better.
Yeah.
But no.
Well, to answer your question, Beverly, he's doing it because he says they're violating the terms of the sale, where they're not giving him the information he's asking for, mostly about spam accounts.
Bots. Yeah, I just found this meme that he posted of himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, he's claiming that they have a lot more bots than they claim they have, right?
Oh yeah. And they wouldn't give it to him. And so then
they say they've given him data. He's like, they haven't really given me data. Who knows?
And apparently now they have to,
right?
In court.
So.
Here. I don't think I've seen that meme.
Oops, wrong thing. It says they. Oh my God, I can't scroll. They said I couldn't buy Twitter. Then they wouldn't disclose bot info. Now they want to force me to buy Twitter in court. Now they have to disclose bot info in court.
That was something one of my best friends said, is this 4D chess and he just wants them to do disclosure in court? Because
that's what I was wondering.
They would have to do discovery. And
then he's like, all right, I will buy now that we have this information.
Yeah, now that we have discovery.
Yeah, that's a good question. My guess is that he's been turned off by this enough that he's just like, because Twitter, I think people think of Twitter as like a big company. I mean, they're a big company, but they're not as big as people imagine. Like their revenue's not great. The quality of their users is pretty bad. So,
didn't a Project Veritas video reveal, like the one guy was saying how they're not making money at Twitter? Like Twitter is just not, that they're really in it for the activism and stuff, that like the company that they're like,
I don't know. I mean, they're public, so you can look at and we can look up their finances. They can't hide that, at least legally. But I know they weren't making money for a long time. And it's pretty clear that their goal is not to maximize profit, because or they're just massively incompetent. I mean, but it's to me, it's pretty clear their goal is not to maximize profit because they're so bad at it. Right. So
I would say the same of a lot of these big tech places that they can't get into the black. And it's like, even though they're top dog in the social media that they, are giving to us. And it's like, how are you so bad at this? Like, and it's like, it can only be that you are deliberately focusing on a different value than money, because otherwise you'd be in the black at this point.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think that could be true. I don't even necessarily think that's always true, right? So there's this strategy, especially for social media apps or other things that need critical mass, right? Where there's this strategy where you're focused on market share, not revenue, right? So you're bleeding cash. You keep getting investment money or whatever, and you're bleeding cash to take more and more market share. And in the case of social media, you also need, you want to get critical mass, obviously, before then, and then you become the big 800-pound gorilla in the room. And so, like, for Twitter, they kind of achieved that at some point. They became the default microblogging platform. But you would expect them at that point to say, okay, well, now we need to switch our priorities to monetizing this. But I'm not convinced, and this is just me speaking as a startup dude in the tech industry, I'm not convinced that I'm not convinced that there always is a market for the thing, right? It might be that in the free market, if people were acting rationally, there would be no Twitter. Like, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. Maybe it's just not worth it. Maybe all the people who invested and everyone who's been throwing money into Twitter were like, yeah, someday it's going to be big and make money. Like, maybe it won't. Maybe people will microblog for free, but the things you have to do to monetize destroy the platform. It's like, maybe it's just not a viable idea in the long run, which I know sounds really weird to say about a successful public company who's made people billions of dollars, but maybe fundamentally it's just not a good idea. It's just not a good business, right? I mean, I wouldn't pay for Twitter. I don't even like it now. I wouldn't pay to use it. And like the ads, you could try and make money from ads, but that's pretty weak. And if it was too spammy with ads, I wouldn't use it at all.
I could kind of see that, because there's two things that I've always kind of felt were true. One is that you can't jack up the price of something like that was free. Like, a lot of people are just going to say, well, then fine, bye.
Right. I'm not going to pay for this.
The other one is that you can go softer, but you can't go harder when in social interactions, especially like in a position of authority. But you got to start hard and then go soft. You can't start soft and then go hard. People will react badly to that. But like, to me, the whole thing, like, I used to I was playing around with the idea of building courses and selling them online, because there's a couple of places that you can do that. And like, and I was like, if I go from this is free to now pay $10 for it, what kind of asshole does that make me? Like, it was my thought. And I was like, people are going to walk away. Like, they're not. And I've seen a lot of software kind of stuff try to do that. And I'm like, oh, and I literally do walk away when they say, suddenly this isn't free anymore. And I'm like, well, okay, bye. I'm like, I'm sure there's another free option out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it does there is when something new comes out, you don't know how to value it often. And if they tell you it's worthless, then that's how you value it. And it's like, okay, well, so it's worthless. I'm used to that now. Twitter's worthless. And if later on they're like, actually, now it's not worthless anymore, it's $10 a month. It's like, no, I'm used to it being worthless. Like, I'm not going to do that. So yeah, I think that is a problem when people because you do train your consumers. Like, your prices help train people to expect a certain thing. It's like, okay, well, this is how we value ourselves, right? It's like, oh, okay, so I shouldn't value you at all because you're giving your stuff away for free. Like, I'm fine with that if you want to continue giving, like, and maybe it works for Facebook, right? Because a lot of people joined anyway, and they're like, fine, like, you're harvesting my data and I'm not your customer. Like, all right, fine. I'm willing to do, I'm not, but some people are willing to do that, and that's fine for them. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was especially maybe if you go up incrementally with stuff, you can't. It's hard to do from zero, but if you had already started with like $1, because I'm just trying to think of like subscriptions that I have to things where they're like, oh, the price increased a little bit here, and then but there's always a point where like, I should stop, and like you should cancel this, and then I end up like, well, I'm using it enough that, and I keep kind of like convincing myself that I will, but then they're like, the next time it goes up, that's when I'm gonna stop.
Well, that's the frog in the
Typically, you
boiling
can't.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically it's hard to go from 0 to anything, right?
Right.
Usually, if you want to start monetizing, you have to introduce features that are desirable and
And then, like, add on.
sometimes even features that don't work until you have critical mass. So you're giving stuff away, you get critical mass. Now there's some features you can introduce, and like you pay for the features, and at least that way you feel like, oh, I'm not paying now for what I used to get for free. I'm paying for this
For
additional
extra.
thing,
New
right?
thing, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, sort of like
or
Netflix.
you find a different customer like advertisers, and you're like, all right, well,
I know Netflix kept raising its prices, and then when they announced that they were going to add ads, a lot of people left. Like I did.
Right.
I was like, I'm not paying. Like I literally pay. Like I'll go out of my way to pay for services that don't have ads. If you have
Right.
ads, you are cutting out the one thing that made you the most attractive. Because I don't have cable TV or satellite or any of those ones that have ads on them. I'm not paying to be advertised at. And like a lot of, I don't think like every company really understands that. Like there was a gaming company, well, it was Capcom, that released a game that you paid like $60 for, and then it had ads in it for other products. It wasn't like a tie-in thing. No, it literally showed you products and was like, buy these things. And it was like, what the hell? Why would I'm like, I'm not paying for this game. Like, what kind of strategy is this?
Is Netflix still gonna be doing that? Because I don't have ads yet.
I don't know. I know that
maybe they just
was out like a month or two ago, and a lot of people canceled. But I don't know.
Wait, do they have ads during this? Like they interrupt the content? Like I don't mind ads at the beginning.
Hulu does that. Hulu does in between content, but if you don't have the ad-free one,
but that's like a free version or something, right? You can, I assume, no?
Oh, I mean, like you could still pay for Hulu. It's a cheaper version.
Yeah, it's a cheaper version of Hulu.
So there's a cheaper version with ads and a more expensive version without ads.
Without it, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but Netflix started off without any ads at all, and they still haven't had it. So I wonder if they decide if they're still going to do that, or if they backed out when they're like, we lost so much. But then that hurts too, because like once you've lost it, they might not come back, even if you decide to not include ads.
Well, the thing is though about like you have to look at what happened to radio. Like AM FM radio had like kept getting more and more ads. Like to me, I'm sort of like that makes your ads less valuable, your ad space to your advertisers, because there's so many of them. But then it got to the point where, and then satellite radio comes out and says you can pay for it and it has no ads, and everyone was like, like, and then
cable
like,
for radio, basically the original.
Exactly. So it's like you can't, even if your product is free, as you said with Twitter, if they inundated you with ads, you would still leave and go find something else.
Yeah. Well, I haven't watched Netflix in a while. Oh, and that's not true. We watched Stranger Things. I didn't see any ads in
Yeah.
No, not so far.
All right.
But they did say they were going to do it, and it did tank their subscriptions.
I think if it happened,
I think they could get away with it if they said we're going to have a free service that has ads.
Yeah. I'd be okay. Because if they did it where like what I'm paying now and I have to do ads, then yeah, I would cancel too.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Vicious Optimist says sunk cost fallacy for 60, Alex.
Thank you.
Indeed.
There's also a sunk cost of time though, like of any other resources you have.
Sure.
Like if you have to consider all forms of your resources. And like I feel that way about Star Wars at this point. I'm like, I'm not gonna keep throwing my time at Star Wars, whether or not I get it for free. I don't care. I got to go see the Force Awakens for free, and I still felt like I got cheated.
It's time you're not getting back.
Exactly. It's like I gotta watched a
I don't, which
much better
which is
movie at
that one?
home. What?
Which is that the latest?
No,
Is that like-
no. That was the first
The-
movie of the sequel trilogy.
Oh.
Force Awakens.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
can
the
see
first
why you
J.J.
don't see it.
Abrams one.
Yeah, I didn't
Hated
watch
it.
all the sequel ones, but I can see it is a theft of your time. But yeah, I want to show you guys something
Oh.
because I just this kind of crap is still happening. So people are still complaining. You'll like it.
Yeah, he's really building this up. This better be good.
I know.
Suspense is killing me.
And also I'm boomering the screen share right now.
Oh my god, JP. I
Huh?
found The Force Awakens to be ironically named since it took 3 times to stay awake for it.
Oof.
All right.
Felt similarly with Doctor Strange.
I couldn't watch that Doctor Strange.
The recent one?
So
Yeah.
yeah.
New.
Okay.
Oh god.
I can't believe this is a headline. I mean, there was a whole barrage of these in the past, but I thought these had died down because
Right, yeah. Yeah, Ryan Long even did a video of that where they're just like
but this is July 11th, so this year. This is today.
Today. Yeah, Carter doesn't know
Right?
what date it is. It's today.
The climate anxiety discussion has a whiteness problem. Marginalized groups often think about the mental impact of their climate crisis in different terms,
Is it because
meaning
white
they end up
people care,
crowded out of the conversation.
Because mostly white people are concerned about the big climate things. That
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so this person, Sarah Jaquette Ray, has spent her career etching out an academic niche. Here we go. At the intersection of your two favorite things, environmental issues and social justice. So
wow.
an awesome combo for Professor Ray, I guess. And so then she noticed that this climate anxiety started to happen. People started to have chronic fear of environmental doom.
Oh, like Greta.
So then she says she realized that basically, I don't want to get all into this, but basically it's white people. Quote, white emotions can take up all the oxygen in the room. By the way, that's a fucking superpower. I would like to know how to do that. So I can just walk into anywhere and emote and suffocate everyone in the room. I think that would be cool. The climate anxiety. Okay, the term climate anxiety itself seemed to mean much more to the white and wealthy experiencing an existential threat for the very first time. So Ray's work has been, quote, really important and provocative for getting the much needed critical questions. I'm like, really? This is what's really important. So anyway, she talks about how I don't want to read anymore, but the reality is that what the term climate anxiety means to white middle-class European might differ completely from what it means to poor farmers in Lagos. Why somebody might say that they're experiencing anxiety is derived from a mishmash of performed notions of what anxiety is, their background, and what words are available to them. Climate anxiety as a term is very privileged, says Ray. Not to mention all the emotions that we don't even have language for, right?
Who ends that? Oh god.
Right. That's yeah. She goes on. She basically talks about we don't have to read it, but she basically the problem is that white people act like this is the first existential crisis. Especially white vegan women, apparently. I added that part. But they
probably too.
Well, it's the whole Bill Burr thing about they put their Gucci boots over the line and make it about them. Yeah.
And she said, well, marginalized people have experienced existential crises before. This isn't their first. So basically, fuck you, white women, I think is the summary of her research. The thing that I want to point out about this is not that this exists. Of course it exists. But I've been thinking a lot about this past couple of weeks. I've been thinking about this. the philosophy necessary to support Western civilization is basically done. There's not like a lot of philosophical work. Yeah, I mean, there's things you can argue about. There's edge cases and weird. Like I actually think abortion is a complex issue because it involves about when rights start, and that you can have a whole issue about rights and blah blah. Like, okay, fine. Like there are some edge cases where there's like you could philosophically argue about some stuff, but for the most part, it's not. This isn't like we don't have to invent the idea. Like, hey, maybe people should have rights. Like. Like individualism doesn't need to be invented. What we need is the application of it. And we just don't there's no activists on the side of individual, almost zero. All the activists, all of the, and especially the bureaucracy, they're all against individual, it's the enemies of the Enlightenment who are really well organized, motivated to be activists. They take your tax dollars and they spend it on this kind of stuff, which is what this made me think about. This woman is a professor at, I think it was Cal Poly, and I don't know where she got. I don't know in her particular case, so I'm going to speak generally. A lot of these people when I say these people, I mean academics causing problems in ivory towers, right? But did Beverly just whisper women?
I said you. Women.
Oh. No. Academics in ivory towers causing problems. A lot of them are getting their funding. The reason that they have jobs is because they can apply for grants, which are often funded through, not always, sometimes it's privately funded because, Pfizer and they do a lot of grants for obviously pharmaceutical research and that kind of stuff. So there is some private industry funding, but for a long time, more than 50, I don't know if it's still more than 50%, because I think it might have dropped based on pharmaceutical research and stuff like that. But for the humanities, a large percentage, probably more than 50%, comes from the federal government. These are people who she gets her PhD in some god-awful thing, like destruction of Western civilization. That's her PhD. That's her thesis. How to destroy the West and kill everyone. Okay. So she does that. She defends her dissertation. Her professors are like, yay, we hate white men too. And the West is awesome. The West is horrible. Let's kill it. So, okay. So they decide they're going to kill the West. Now, who wants to pay her to sit around and pontificate about crap? Who wants to pay her to sit around and think about the intersection of climate and social justice and the concept of climate anxiety and whether it's a whiteness problem? No one who actually wants a return on their money. No one wants, who the fuck would pay for that? No one would pay for that, but the swamp will. The bureaucrats in Washington will, and they're paying for it with your tax dollars. So she gets good at writing grant proposals. She writes grant proposals to these stupid agencies you've probably never heard of who have all these stupid programs. Your hard-earned cash, if you're a mechanic and you go and you're working 10, 12 hours a day and you're under a car with a wrench, working your ass off, getting greasy, actually fixing things, doing something real, your paycheck gets stolen. Roughly half your paycheck, or let's say 30 to 50% of your paycheck gets stolen. Some of that goes to the federal government. Some of that goes to California or wherever you live. And then that gets divvied up, and it gets, and part of who gets it is this bitch, right? She writes a grant saying, I want to study this crap. And it goes to her. And I'm not saying that grants are a large percentage of the U.S. budget. They're not. But the U.S. budget is a large percentage of grant money. A lot of this crap is paid for by you. You are paying for it. Whether you hate it or not, it's paid for by you. I don't think you would have the prolific output from gender studies departments and all this other crap if it wasn't for you, the taxpayer, footing the bill. You're paying because no one wants to pay. No one in the real world wants to pay for this because it's useless. And now they're paying to have their own propaganda pushed so that people actually are starting to think they need it. You've got ESG scores and stuff where it's like, oh, well, maybe we need this stuff, but you didn't in the past. And the only reason you ever needed it in the first place is because some swamp rat decided to fund the research.
I think Johnny Boy Quickdraw makes a good point, though, is that because he brought up all the places that would pay for it would be media. Yeah. And the reason why media would pay for it is because it they did research and found that things like racism and sexism got them a lot of views. So like it is profitable for them to get stuff that basically teaches everyone that everything is racist and everything is sexist.
I agree with that, but I think that they are downstream of the ivory towers who invented these concepts in the first place. And let's be honest, CNN is broke. I mean, like, yeah, these people are mainstream media companies, but like they suck. They don't make any money. No one watches CNN. I mean, unless you're sitting in an airport, no one watches it. I mean, I put it on for fun.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Why did you watch it? You mentioned
because it's actually Elle got me into watching MSNBC and CNN once in a while for like, oh, what are the crazy people talking about? Like, oh, fun, and like you can kind of pay attention, but like I don't think. Yeah, I don't think their businesses would last. And speaking of ESG, I'm going to throw this out here too, because I learned this. Ammo is ridiculously expensive, as a lot of you who shoot know. And so I started to look into why. And one of the reasons is the materials are expensive. Copper is used in a lot of things. There's the COVID supply chain issues, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, people purchased a lot more firearms recently. So, that translates into more ammo. There aren't a lot of companies who make primers, which is a big deal. But the really interesting thing is there are 2 companies in the US, 2, who make ammo. That's it. Olin and Vista Outdoor. And all the brands here, I'll pull up Vista Outdoor. I'll just pull up their brand list. Like when you're buying like CCI and you think you're buying something different, I think Olin makes Remington and Vista Outdoor makes like almost everything else. That's a generalization. Here, Vista Outdoor's brands. Oh no, Vista Outdoor does Remington, Federal. Yeah, there you go. Hops. That's they don't make ammo. Okay, so this is Vista Outdoor. And let's go to what is it? Olin? Here, hold on. Let me find it. Boom. Olin. Oh. Winchester. Yeah, that's right. They have Winchester. So Olin has Winchester, right? And Vista Outdoor has one of, I think CCI's. I saw CCI somewhere. There it is. CCI, Spear, Federal, right? This is all 2 companies. That's it. There's 2 companies that make all the ammo. 2.
Wow. Okay. I wasn't aware that they had like the big.
And and the other thing I wanted to say is, wait, we should pull this back up. Investors. Go to investors. Hey, look what's on the front page of Vista's investors page. ESG. Here's our ESG stuff. These are your enemies. Your enemies are making your ammo. Now, I read their ESG stuff. They're trying to like play lip service a lot more than Amazon would. So maybe they feel compelled. But still, like it has infiltrated. I can't think of a more anti-woke industry than guns and shooting. It's infiltrated. These guys, Olin doesn't. I looked at their investor relations. They don't have like, I didn't see a lot of ESG. I didn't see ESG stuff. And maybe it's buried somewhere, but it's certainly not on their front page. Oh, here it is.
What is?
Oh no, environmental safety and security. That's different than governance.
Security.
So like, yeah, they're a little bit different, right? But Vista Outdoor, they got it right here. Here's our ESG stuff.
Olin was Winchester.
Huh?
Olin is the parent of Winchester. Was that right?
Yeah, Olin makes Winchester, I think. Yeah. Yeah. I keep forgetting.
But Vista is.
Yeah, Olin does Winchester, and Vista does all that other. like Federal, CCI, Remington. That's all Vista, and they're all ESG'd up. They're jacked up on ESG. Makes me want to start an ammo company, but I don't think I can do that in California.
Probably not. Get out of there. Well, that's disappointing. Also, ESG, I always think of MSG first, so I have to stop and remember what ESG stands for.
It's like MSG, but it's more upsetting to the stomach.
But I always
Sri Lanka had a 98 out of 100 ESG score before they yeah,
before or after the pool party insurrection.
Before the pool party.
Okay. Wait, there's a super chat.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Someone says just another reason to come to Texas. I gotta tell you, I don't know if I want to say where I was. There are freer states than Texas. Let me tell you. All right, hold on. Where's that one that was just up? There we go. What is your opinion on Malthusianism as opposed to Marxism? I don't know that they're opposed necessarily. Being a primary driver for the Western elite. Oh, I see. What they're along with the obvious motivation of increasing their wealth, power, and control.
I've said many times that I believe they follow Malthusian ideas, that they believe it's true, which it was stupid when he wrote it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to side with Alex on this. I think it's probably more Malthusian because I don't think they actually want Marxism, just like the Chinese aren't actually communists. What they want is an administrative state that they are part. They want to. In fact, I talked about this in Dangerous Thoughts maybe before I left. I don't remember, but I definitely before I left. I don't remember how far.
Vacation, he was doing some.
They want the three estates back, kind of from if you look at France before the French Revolution, right? They want the nobility class back that helps to manage the unwashed masses of the third estate. That's what they want, and they want to be part of that class. So, if they think Marxist language will get the political result they want, they'll use Marxist language. But I think ultimately they're motivated by, I think they're probably convinced of maybe a Malthusian, probably not 100% Malthusianism, but like, I think that it has an influence on them and they want to be in charge of resource allocation. I mean, look, at the end of the day, all these people, especially the engineering types, they view everything like a system, which is fine. Like system building and viewing things like a system is great when you're building systems. But when you're talking about people, you need to let go and give them the freedom and independence to have the chaos that naturally will arise into some sort of order, but that you don't control. Morals come into play when you're building a system of people. You can't do that, right? But a lot of these people, they don't see a distinction between system building with flip-flops and that goes over the head of everyone. System building with electronics and system building with human beings, right? Because in one case, individual rights are involved, in the other case, not. But for them, they look at the world as this system, and they want to be part of the team that gets to design how the system runs most efficiently, right? And moral people don't want to be a part of that. Moral people want to go, leave us the F alone, let people voluntarily figure out their interactions. And the quote system, if there is one, is an emergent property of voluntary cooperation among disparate groups. That's what happens. People and disparate individuals, like people voluntarily cooperate, they form alliances or not, they form coalitions or not, they interact with who they want to, they have voluntary association, and something emerges from that chaos, something that works. That's how you get, like, the supply chain, the supply chain stuff. Those supply chains didn't emerge because, Joe Biden sat down and figured out the best way to get, sand from one place into your iPhone in the form of silicon that's been refined and stamped into, or, etched into a chip on the, like, that's not how that worked. that happened voluntarily and naturally. Now you can say, well, look at the supply chain died with Koof, but like, let's put that aside because clearly the government was involved in both regulation of the supply chain once it was built and they're responsible for the reactions to the Koof. So, but the supply chain is an emergent property. Like they didn't have to. Dell was a big leader in figuring out how to do just-in-time manufacturing. Like people invented stuff or just-in-time supply. Like people invented ways to do supply chains more efficiently over time. So that's an emergent property of leaving people alone. In fact, the tech industry for the past, I mean, maybe less so recently, but in the past, it's a great example of how when everyone says like, oh, what would happen if the government didn't design roads and blah, 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 blah. Like iPhones happen. Like you want to look at what the free market does when it's left alone. Tech was largely unregulated for a long, I mean, not completely, but way less regulated than the finance industry or anyone else. They were pretty unregulated and they had an explosion of productivity over the past several decades. That's what happens when you leave them alone. They figure out how to do shit that people want.
I think it's really important to remember when that Soviet official came over and they took him to a grocery store and he's all like, what are popsicles and how is this centrally planned? And they're like, It's not centrally planned. People did this on their own. And it was just a wake-up call for him to go, oh my God, central planning doesn't work. Our system doesn't work. Because centralized planning, which is what a lot of people are supporting right now, they're like, oh, we need the federal government to tell us what to do. We need the globalists to tell us what to do. And it's like, we already know that doesn't work because the Soviets tried it.
But it works for them. And it works for the people in charge for a while. Like,
yes,
if you're Khrushchev, it works fine. Right? Yeah. So, and if you're in the Chinese Communist Party right now, if you're in the they don't call it a Politburo, I forget what they call it, whatever. If you're in the little inner circle, it's working great for you. It's working beautifully. You don't have a problem getting anything you want, doing anything you want, going anywhere you want. Oh yeah, sure. You know, there's some slaves in some spots and some people are dying and getting arrested and disappeared and there's other problems, but you're fine, right? All you have to do is bring PowerPoint charts to the next meeting about how you're going to fix whatever problem over here and make it more efficient. Like, you know, you're fine. And that's what they want to do. That's the administrative state.
Well, I think this didn't sound weird, but the idea of centralized control when it comes to force and self-defense of individuals is also not working. Considering you look at some of these cities that have highly restrictive gun laws, people are dying. They're getting shot all the time in Chicago. Jose Alba's been arrested and charged with murder for defending himself. Even though...
Oh, wait, I don't know this. Tell me about this one.
Yeah.
Okay, so a bodega owner in New York City was being attacked by two people, much younger than him. He's kind of elderly kind of guy. They had him trapped. The woman stabbed him. He managed to get the upper hand at one point against the guy and stabbed him, and he died. And so they're charging him with murder. They didn't charge her with assault or robbery.
Or attempted murder for wielding a knife.
Murder, yeah,
exactly. And so he's in Rikers, but she gets to walk free. So it's like the real problem here is that they're not okay with the idea of you defending yourself. No. That needs, again, centralized control. You should have had the cops do it only. And it's like, this is just this kind of taking away of from every corner of individuals' ability to do anything is insane without the centralized force telling you can do it. It's not good. Its effect is death and famine. That's its effect.
Yeah. And that's why the analogy of like this being a tax farm, I think it's appropriate because you're a farm animal. And like, if you imagine like, well, if we let the farm animals, like if we give them if we let them defend themselves, we don't have control. But like if one farm animal goes bad and eats another one or kills another one, like, they're fungible. Like, I don't care if the bodega owner dies. That's I do, but like that's their mentality. Like, well, that's a bodega. Like, he's fungible with other people, and like we'll just get the. Then they would have probably charged. Had he been killed by the woman or the guy, they'd have charged that person with murder, and like, and
But
that
they would
have
not
been,
have held them in Rikers. They would have immediately released them.
probably
right.
right.
Yeah.
But he, that was that was the other thing I noticed over Independence Day. There was this horrific. Wasn't there a shooting in Chicago, like outside of Chicago, on the 4th of July?
Yes.
Yeah.
And all I heard was this shooting. And all I could think of, I didn't hear the details, so I don't know how many people. Do you guys know how many people were killed?
Oh, I forget the number.
Is it 11?
Yeah, it was in the above 10.
Okay. So I'm like, all right, this is bad. But it immediately made me think of this. If you go to this site's called Hey Jackass. It's a great site. They just track Chicago death, like murder, right? And homicides. Chicago is a cesspool of homicide. That is a drop in the bucket from what happens to like it happens in Chicago all the time. Here's the.
Oh, and it was 6 dead and 31 injured. Sorry.
Okay. Summer of Joy from May 27th. Oh, I don't know. That was a year to date. There's been 321 people shot and killed in Chicago, and 351 total homicides already in Chicago. Like.
Yeah, I had a coworker who was
Chicago's a mess.
Mugged by gunpoint twice in Chicago.
Yeah.
Some Fox correspondent's younger brother was killed.
Oh, really?
Chicago.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, he was shot. Yeah. And I mean,
Who is this?
I don't remember his name. Because I don't watch the news purposely. And I try not to remember these idiots' names. I really don't want to give them that kind of resource.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
They're not people.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like it's not that I don't feel bad for the people that have been murdered on the Independence Day parade. Absolutely. But the news suddenly is talking about a suburb of Chicago when like they don't talk about Chicago.
Yeah, I'm sure that there were way more people killed that day and that same day.
Yeah. And then Greg the baritone in chat says the news I saw said 7 deaths in Highland Park, far more other homicides the same weekend.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, someone was trying to say that when the may carry shall carry thing was going on with SCOTUS, that may issue states were actually less like, oh, we make the claim, the other side makes the claim, us, that violence is down in places that have freer gun laws. Okay. And he's all like, but may issue states have less gun homicides. And I was like, excuse me? You just put a limit on that was not in the original claim. Like, okay, tell me about actual violence. And then he goes, well, some people are saying that it's not enough that I'm saying, firearms. So here's the other thing is homicides. And I was like, no. You said violence. You said it was violence. So tell me about all violent crime. And because that data does not support you. And that's why you won't show it. And that kind of like finesse of the argument always like drives me crazy.
Yeah. Well, because they don't mind victims. They're willing to take victims, they're willing to have victims as long as you don't have guns.
Yeah.
Right. So,
yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Speaking of Arizona, by the way, I just saw this is what I saw, and you can tell me if it's wrong, Alex. Did they ban the filming of police at close range?
Yeah, some of the police were being followed to actual crime sites, like as they were ongoing and stuff, and it was becoming kind of a problem where it was like a situation where like these people were like getting in the way and or like endangering themselves. So that's what it's about. Like, I don't necessarily like, and like to me, I'm sort of like, just arrest them for like obstruction of justice.
If they're interfering,
yeah.
Like, I'm like, that is a crime.
If they're just endangering themselves, I kind of feel like, okay, like
Okay.
Yeah. And like, all right, if they get hurt, then at
I know.
least put it on that. Like, it's not the cops' fault if they were the ones
Mhm.
putting themselves in danger there.
Yeah.
yeah.
So you can,
I
if
could
you're
see
back, if you're like, not too close to them, like as in not obstructing justice, you could still film them. That's not, they didn't change that. But I think like if you're within 8 feet and you're part of the situation already, like they're at your door, I think you should still be allowed to film them. Like I
right,
think
of course.
that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so to me, I'm kind of like about that news. But when it comes to like
Are they
Arizona
not? Is that
news,
what the new law is then? Is that people even
I've
in
not
the
actually read it, so
Okay.
I've not like I was more focused on the Arizona school choice voucher expansion recently when I was looking at the Arizona news, which it's kind of hilarious to hear people like teachers unions and teachers like complaining about it. I'm like, shut up, like. Like we already had a really good school choice voucher program here. I give my state taxes to it every year. So and you guys know I don't have kids.
Right.
But so like to me when they expanded it, I was like, yes, good, do more. And they're also like limiting government oversight involved in those vouchers, which is the other really good news about that.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think the idea of if you're not involved in this situation, staying 8 feet away is like kind of common sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone
You're
has
not
that.
involved. Stay like don't get in arm's reach of the cop.
Yeah.
Like okay.
They don't. I get they don't want like a crowd of people like around the cops during an active situation. Like that's probably like
Right.
worrisome.
Yeah. I mean, they have enough to focus on whatever the crime is too. So then it's more distractions. So I get that.
So someone is saying that we missed a big story.
Oh yeah.
Johnny
Which
Boy
one?
Quick Draw says
the super chat.
you've missed one of the really big recent stories. Where'd it go?
Stop touching stuff.
Oh, I see. I shouldn't be the one putting it on screen, or I'm gonna get it.
Yeah.
You've missed one of the really big. This is from Johnny Boy Quick Draw. You've missed one of the really big recent stories. The Georgia Guidestones were blowed the f up. Lizard people everywhere are on high alert. What are the Georgia
Oh
Guidestones?
yeah. It kind of
hell's
looks. They're just like weird stones. They're kind of like a Georgia little Stonehenge thing, a Stonehenge, and
Was it like a come here if the apocalypse happens?
I never read what it said. And probably I would not be surprised, but yeah. And then someone blew up at least part of it.
And then they leveled
Wikipedia
it.
says that they existed from 1980, so they're not old.
No. It's just someone doing stupid stuff.
Okay. Do they have a particular meaning? Am I missing something? Is there like a?
I think it was like a come here, like unite here if something horrible happens kind of thing.
Just like a meetup spot for.
Oh.
Yeah.
So the zombie apocalypse, you go to the Guidestones with your ammo and shotgun.
Yeah. So that like-minded people can protect each other and stuff.
You think it would be like a more defensive construction, though? I guess, or if something's going down, like something that would seem safer.
You would think
wait.
so.
The Guidestones. This is according to Wikipedia. The Guidestones became a subject of interest for conspiracy theorists. Wired stated that the unspecified opponents have labeled them the quote 10 Commandments of the Antichrist. Some conservative Christians have called the monument satanic. Right-wing activist Mark Dice, is he right-wing? I guess, demanded that the Guidestones should be, quote, smashed into a million pieces and then the rubble should be used for a construction project, claiming that the Guidestones are of a deep satanic origin.
Deep from the...
And the R.C. Christian, I guess the creator, belongs to a, quote, Luciferian secret society related to the New World Order. So they're like the original Pizzagate.
So weird.
Oh, Rib Rascal says they say to keep the population under 500 million. Well, it's a little late.
Late, yeah.
Even 1980 was a little bit late for that, but okay.
Yeah. Someone mentioned the Macy Gray thing. So like,
oh yeah.
So after Roe v. Wade fell and everything, Macy Gray and Bette Midler were going on about how rape and abortion rights only like affect women and everything, and then and they were called TERFs because they
didn't say pregnant people.
Yes, exactly. They were recognizing biological essentialism, and that bothered a lot of people. And Macy Gray folded. She folded hard, and Matt Walsh like called her coward, and J.K. Rowling like had a fight with Matt Walsh about it, and it's like, oh, it's all a Twitter like BS kind of like, celebrities are fighting. And the funny thing is though, is that like, I think it was today it came out that Helen Joyce said that Matt Walsh like is the reason why girls are cutting their tits off, essentially. Like she said, and like his conservative messaging is why girls are going trans. And I was like, no.
What are they talking about?
Well, she was kind of saying, so what she was saying is like, there's one ideology that's telling women, that girls, that they can't do anything but make like Matt Walsh a sandwich and get them to open jars for them. And the other ideology is saying they have an infinite possibilities as long as they cut off their tits and use testosterone. And I was like, okay, Matt Walsh's messaging is not, or anyone like him, is not what's making girls trans. Okay.
Is that is that an accurate representation of his messaging in the first place?
No, it is not. Because part of me was like, first of all, the jar and the sandwich thing is a joke. Can you, pull the stick out of your ass and laugh?
Yep.
Which, like, it drove me crazy that was the take. And then also, if you want to go between those two possibilities, I would definitely rather make a man a sandwich than cut my tits off. Like, those are the options. I'm making the damn sandwich, okay?
It's like no one was aware that the 80s and 90s existed when like girls could be tomboys and no one gave a crap.
I know.
Yeah. So Johnny Boy Quick Draw says birthing persons, and I just want to point out they're not birthing persons, Johnny Boy, because they're not birthing. They're just pregnant persons. They're not birthing persons.
I'm okay that they are not birthing, though. They probably don't need those genes. I hope we don't get banned. But I saw it with the Macy Gray and stuff because they were trending on Twitter, and I was just like, oh, she's still alive. And then I had to remember what was that popular song that I knew? No, but I just haven't thought about her in years. So then I had to look up, and I'm like, oh yeah, the song was
like every other.
Yeah, and I saw that her song was "I Try," and like, oh yeah, that song. And I couldn't remember how it goes. I looked it up, and then it's been stuck in my head all day. So thanks a lot, Matt Walsh.
Yeah, I actually agree with Matt Walsh that people who cave to that shit are cowards. Like, and we should call them out as cowards. Like, and that's not something I believe because Matt Walsh said it. I already believed that. I'm like,
you have to make him a sandwich.
You guys cave. Right. You make it harder for the rest of us. Stop it.
So why was J.K. Rowling? Because she didn't cave, I assume, right? Why was she arguing?
She's mad at Matt Walsh for getting mad at Macy Gray as a man.
But she liked his documentary, right?
She did.
But I thought they were
they chilled out after a couple of tweets to stop fighting each other, like because they gave ground to each other. But like at first,
this sounds like junior high school to me.
I know, it's so gossipy bullshit.
And meanwhile, gas prices are still pretty high. Consumer price index is pretty high. I think it's coming out. The new one's coming out soon. The economy's in the tank. But hey, let's argue on Twitter over who's a TERF.
I also
who's a coward.
So saw a thing. What is it? Did you guys hear about everyone was talking about the 10-year-old girl crossing state lines for an abortion, and then even Biden was saying that, and now the validity of it is coming into question.
I heard Megan Fox actually was doing the investigation and figured out that. Yeah. Maybe I'll see if she can come on next week. We'll ask her about it. But yeah,
that'd be good.
There's no real source for it. There's only one source, and you can't back it up anyway.
It was just the one doctor. It was the one woman who does abortions, and she told she's like, this happened. But they also make such a big deal over having like this 10-year-old child who was raped, had all this trauma from the pregnancy and the rape, and they had to cross state lines. And they were like making a big deal about the state line crossing part. Like that's what, and I'm like, if you had all this trauma, the state line crossing is not your biggest problem. Like if this story were true, that like there's a lot of other issues going on there, and you're not the one like doing the travel, like the driving or whatever. You probably had an adult with you to take you across state, and it was from like Ohio to Indiana. Like, it was not like it was just the one state. So I didn't understand why they had to make such a big deal about the traveling part over the entire story.
Well, that's their big thing. Is like you might have to cross state lines, and that's a big. It's like, well.
But just like logically, I'm like, I just don't understand. Like, I'm supposed to care about this though. Like, if this happened, why are we not upset that this 10-year-old girl is just pregnant? Like, let's talk about that. And which is what like Megan was.
Well, and where's the criminal charge? Because clearly that there wasn't like, something illegal happened.
Yeah.
So,
I just watched what's his name's. I actually brought him up in our private chat, but Sticks. Hexenhammer 666 was like, where's the criminal charges? Like he came out with a video about that today. He's like, where are the criminal charges? It's like if it's real, there'd be a case, someone be arrested. And it's like,
and if there's not a case, that's a problem.
That's the real problem.
if it's real and no one pressed charges, why the fuck not?
Yeah. I've got a palate cleanser here. If we want.
Okay, please. Yeah.
Got caught just now.
Oh.
It's just a baby bunny. Who got caught yesterday? You're the same one.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid.
It's a palate cleanser.
They kind of act like crossing state lines is like crossing the Mexico-U.S. border. But it's so hard.
You realize that to cross state lines, you have to not notice that you've crossed state lines. Like
you see a sign
you're on the freeway, and you're like, "Where are we? Oh, did we? Oops!" That's how you cross state lines.
Yep.
Yeah, like I'd understand a little bit more if it were more difficult to go from state to state, but we're not there yet. So sometimes I'm just like, oh, I'm in Ohio now. Cool. Well, not cool.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that like is, I'll say legitimately in quotes, but like that is regulated by the federal government. Like you can't have like interstate commerce. It's like, yeah, you need to be able to cross state lines. That's a thing. So.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, aren't they kind of going for that in the European Union? And they keep going about like how they keep comparing borders in Europe to borders in between the US and Mexico. And it's like, yeah, but you guys are more like us now, and that you're like unifying so that you don't have to worry quite so much about that kind of stuff. But I bet you would still care about like a border with Russia. Like, shut up.
Yeah, the better, if you're going to make that analogy, then the EU is analogous to the United States. Each is its own independent state, and there's another government layer on top of that, which manages the interactions between them and whatever. I mean, it does more than it's supposed to, but like that's the analogy, not like these people, man, they're fine with as many layers of government as possible.
Unfortunately. And the problem is the more complicated you make this, the harder it is for anyone to live their lives. It's like, oh, this is legal in this state, but it's actually illegal on the federal level. And oh, it's actually also illegal in my county. Like, oh, would my state municipality come after me? Like, what? Right. This is so annoying. Like,
what it should be is, it should be like the federal government shouldn't be involved in that, right? So it's like, okay, well, it's legal in my state or it's not legal in my state. And I guess you could have rules that are county based, but that's up to your state.
Right? Speaking of county and state stuff, someone, I think it was Greg the Baritone, was asking earlier in chat about I think when you said Texas, there are fewer states than Texas, so he was asking like which ones, like Florida, Montana, Wyoming. Do you have?
Oh, I mean, most states are, I mean, sure.
That's what he was at, and I'd say
Wyoming, Nevada, Montana, Florida, like plenty of states are freer than Texas.
We
Texas is free in
my
many
big
ways.
concern
It's
are
good.
people who move, like the people you don't want who are moving to the cities and the states. That was my concern with, I was talking to you about that before when I even
Sure,
moved back
it's
to
a valid
Pennsylvania.
concern.
But ultimately, I still went with can I be in a local area? Like, is my area going to not, because will they ignore a lot of state stuff too, which this area did, even when we had mandates and stuff, like no one really cared about it. We didn't have anyone like trying to stop people from living their lives or like running restaurants and all that. So because that's what I was like, any state could potentially fall if like the cities get overrun with the worst people.
Yeah, that's why I'm starting to lean towards states like Wyoming, which are like no one wants to live there.
Yeah.
No, seriously, like it's too harsh for leftists.
Right. No, yeah.
It's like cold and like difficult to live in the winter. Like they don't want that.
I just want to live in a desert, like, and I'm having a hard time picking, like I know Florida and New Hampshire would be probably a good place civically, but I'm like, I still want to live in the desert. Like, I don't want to leave
Why
the
do
desert.
you want that?
I like it. Okay.
Weird thing for me to like comprehend is wanting.
Everyone has their own thing.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand why.
Weather,
I hate blizzards for one thing.
Okay, no. Being
And
against snow, I do get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Florida would not be good for you.
Yeah. And as Greg DeBaritone points out, the problem of finding a free state where you can also find a decent job. Yeah. And so that's why I'm a big fan of alternate economies, right? And starting to, I think if we're liberty minded, people need to start figuring out how to start companies and like do their own, like we need to start having an alternate economy, right? Because ultimately this ESG thing's not going to go away. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. We will have, more and more of the progressive ideology enforced in like a soft enforcement through companies. And so I think we need to start building alternate economies. And you can work from home in many jobs. It depends what you do, right? So
right, yeah, there are remote jobs out there, not for everyone, but they're out there too if you can do it. Even
if it's not a remote job, if it's like physical labor, there are most places like you have to show up that like that kind of stuff is needed other places, and you can
very needed.
If you find a free state, it's probably good for business. Like it's probably a pro-business state, so it's probably pretty easy to start a business and probably low taxes if you're finding a state that's pretty free. So Rib Rascal says, I need an ocean close by. I love oceans too.
Me too.
But
near one.
The question is like, do I need an ocean more than freedom? And I think the answer is no.
I mean, but if you're on the ocean, being a pirate, that's pretty free out in the open seas. So you got that.
Yeah.
Also, Alex,
isn't Greg the baritone? He's got his list of like whining problems. I mean, I'm picking on you, Greg, because I like you. You're on
lack of high-speed internet.
Lack of high-speed internet. Yeah, there's a bunch of problems. Yeah, sure, you solve the problems like one by one.
But I'm making it work, sort of. So it's
Starlink's actually pretty good, by the way.
Not here yet.
My buddy had Starlink in the middle of nowhere, and it was pretty good.
I've heard if you can actually get it, then it can be pretty great. A lot better.
I think they prioritize places that are less populated because they can't get internet elsewhere.
Not in a populated area. That's what I thought. But then from what I've seen in PA, they're in like more town areas that can already get internet. Yeah, I'm out here in the country and we still don't have it. So I don't know if I believe that because they're like putting it in certain spots, but I would think so.
I don't know. But look, if you had a bunch of people that were all moving, you could go in on something. It can't. I mean, seriously. I know this sounds hyperbolic, but it's not that expensive to put a satellite up. So if you had a community of people that all wanted internet, you just pool your resources and put a satellite up. You could probably pay Elon to be like, I want one of the satellites, but this is for us. Like, okay. So someone's got to invent. If it doesn't already exist as a product, someone will have like private, like, oh, this is ours. It's like a HOA satellite. Like, oh, this is ours. I'm like, okay. It's fine. I think that'll happen.
Well, sort of like the community resource, sort of like HOAs maybe have pools, but now like maybe instead Starlink.
Right, you've got a satellite. Like, okay, I don't know how many. It's really not that. I mean, it's not. You're probably not going to do it yourself, but it's really not that expensive to put them up. So
I would be so willing to do so
bunch of neighbors.
if they let it happen. Because I tried doing that with cable internet. I was like, and I called and asked, can I pay for this to do? And they said no for whatever reason. Just no, even if they don't have to pay for it.
Well, look, I know a freedom-oriented dude who is not Elon Musk, who does like space stuff. So like, someone will come along. Like if there's a demand for that, like that can totally be. We don't have to limit ourselves. It's like, well, we can't have this because we need the rest of the world to do it. Like, yeah, we can. There's plenty of smart, freedom-oriented people. Sure, we can. We can build a satellite. Like, I can't personally build a rocket ship and a satellite, but like, we can as a community. Like, sure. That's not an unsolvable problem.
I was trying to say earlier too, Alex, that isn't Antarctica known as the largest desert? So you can get what you want in your desert, and then you hate blizzards, so it's just you can balance it out by living down there.
I'm pretty sure I would die.
I think a lot of people would not make it down there.
No.
All right. Look, we've been going for almost 2 hours. We should probably wrap up the show, right?
Yeah, I think we've got everything that I had found. The only other thing was just Canada.
Is there anything else that we need to?
It's small, like not that big of a deal, but I just heard that like Canada's internet and cell service went down over the weekend for like just a lot of everything. A lot of the companies though, so not everyone, but it seemed like a majority or something went down for like 12 plus hours. I'm not sure exactly what happened with it. I was just told by some Canadians.
Some Canadians. All right. Well, thank you both for filling me in on the last 2 weeks. Yeah, I don't know. Nothing really changed that much. Just more craziness.
Yeah.
What are you guys talking about on Thursday? Tell everyone what you're talking about on Thursday.
We have to go watch. I still have to see the new Thor, so we're doing that. I have seen. Oh, you have seen it? Okay, so yeah, that's the main one. I don't think we've decided exactly what the other stuff it will be yet.
Maybe that comedian that bought back his own special.
Oh, which comedian is that?
I don't remember his name.
Find out. Not Tyler Fisher.
You put it in the.
Did I? I don't remember.
You did. I already knew about it, but you put it in there. Like, maybe we'll talk about this.
So something about a comedian that I apparently did. I remember the Paul Rudd thing, so we'll talk about that later. But yeah, Thor. Something about a comedian.
That's Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. And Wednesday, I think I have Stephen Hicks on for Dangerous Thoughts, so join me for that. Any other announcements we need that I should say? No.
Get involved in the book club.
Please like, share, and subscribe, and get involved in the book club. Yes.
Oh, book club. Yeah, we'll announce that later after we talk about it.
The date
after we schedule it.
Yeah.
All right. Later, everyone. Beverly, are you rolling the credits? You roll the credits. Bye, everyone.
Stop touching things. Bye.
Thanks for sticking around until the end. If you're new to Unsafe Space, check out our deep content library that includes discussions with everyone from James Lindsay to Brett Weinstein. And please consider helping to fund our work by visiting unsafespace.com/donate. You can find us on a variety of social media platforms, and you can find a community of like-minded individuals on our Unsafe Space Discord server, which is open to financial supporters at any level. We hope to see you there.
Warning. This is an unsafe space. Dangerous ideas have been detected. The content of this production does not meet WHO health and safety standards. Please report to a United Nations Sanitization Center immediately. Association with the following individuals is strictly prohibited. Experts who benefit from printing money agree that printing money does not cause price inflation. Trust me, just 2 more weeks to slow the spread of monkeypox. If you think about it, no one should be allowed to express opinions. But don't. Think about it, I mean. That's not your job. Thinking has been scientifically proven to be less efficient than compliance. Science, scientific, and scientifically are registered trademarks of the World Economic Forum. Unauthorized use is prohibited. Computer voice courtesy. Never mind, that last line is fake news. Please disregard it and return to your safe space immediately. There will be cake.